The day began in a calm and steady way at the small town police station where Officer Amir sat behind his desk with a stack of papers that needed his attention. The early sunlight came through the front windows and filled the room with a soft golden shade that made everything feel peaceful. It looked like an ordinary start to the day, and everyone inside the station moved with slow steps as if time itself had decided to relax for a while. Amir took a long breath and stretched his back before returning to his report. He felt that nothing unusual would disturb this quiet morning, until the sound of the station door suddenly opening cut through the air with surprising force. Amir looked up at once because visitors rarely arrived this early. He expected someone with a simple question, or maybe a person asking for help with directions or a lost item. Instead, he saw something he had never seen before in his years of working at the station. A small German shepherd puppy with soft fur and bright amber eyes ran inside and skidded to a stop on the polished floor. The puppy looked frightened and confused, yet determined and alert at the same time. Its tiny paws were covered in dust and mud, which showed that it had been running for a long distance. Its breathing was fast and shallow, as if it had been pushing its little body far harder than normal. Amir stood from his chair and took a few slow steps forward so he would not scare the little creature. The puppy looked around the station as if searching for the right person, and then its eyes landed on Amir with a surprising sense of recognition. Before Amir could speak, the puppy rushed toward him with a burst of energy and gently bit the bottom edge of his pant leg while pulling backward. It did not hurt, but it clearly wanted him to follow. Amir froze in surprise for a moment, because animals did not behave like this unless something was very wrong. The puppy let out a soft cry that sounded like desperation mixed with hope. It released his pant leg and ran toward the station door again, then turned around to look at him. Its tail did not wag with joy but instead stood stiff in alarm. The message was clear, even without words. Something out there needed help, and this puppy had decided that Amir was the one who would understand. Amir called out to his partner Zain, who was working at the far desk. Zain looked at the scene with wide eyes and hurried over. The two officers shared a silent agreement. They had no idea what was waiting outside, but they knew they had to respond immediately. Amir grabbed his jacket while Zain reached for his radio. Neither wanted to delay, even for a second. When they stepped out of the station, the puppy ran ahead with fast steps that showed urgency and purpose. It kept looking back from time to time to make sure Amir and Zain were still following, and only then continued its path forward. The officers followed the puppy down the main street, which slowly turned into a quieter road that led toward the edge of the town. The buildings became older and fewer as they moved along, and the warm morning sunlight began to fade under the tall shadows of abandoned structures and empty storage units. The air felt different in this part of town. It carried a strange sense of stillness that made Amir uneasy. He felt that something was hiding beneath the silence that stretched over the area like a blanket. The puppy finally stopped in front of an old warehouse that had once been used for storing machines many years ago. Now it stood heavy and worn with rusted doors and broken windows. The puppy began scratching the entrance with small frantic movements and cried in a low and painful sound that showed fear for someone inside. Amir stepped closer and placed a hand on the metal door. It felt cold even under the rising sun. With a careful push he slid the door open, and the large inside space of the warehouse revealed a mix of dust, old metal pieces, and scattered wooden crates. The smell of rust floated in the air and echoed inside the empty structure. As Amir and Zain moved in, they heard a faint sound coming from the far corner of the warehouse. The sound was weak and trembling, almost like the voice of someone calling for help, but too tired to speak clearly. The officers looked at each other and quickened their steps. The puppy ran ahead again and guided them toward a small room at the back where shelves filled with old parts had collapsed on one side. Under the fallen metal pieces they saw a young boy named Sammy who looked around 10 years old. His face showed exhaustion and relief at the same time. Amir knelt beside him and asked if he was hurt. Sammy explained in a tired voice that he had been riding his bicycle near the warehouse and had come inside only to look around. While exploring, he accidentally pushed the shelves and they fell on him, trapping his legs. He tried to move them, but they were too heavy. The puppy had been outside with him earlier, and when the shelves collapsed, the puppy squeezed through a gap under the door and escaped. Sammy did not know if the puppy would find anyone, but he trusted it because it had always been loyal. Hearing this filled Amir with deep respect for the brave little puppy that now stood beside Sammy, licking his hand softly as if trying to comfort him. Without wasting another second, Amir and Zayn worked together to lift the shelves. It took effort, but they finally freed Sammy, who winced slightly as they helped him sit up. His ankle looked swollen and bruised, but he was alive and conscious. Zayn called for an ambulance while Amir carried Sammy outside to fresh air. The puppy walked beside them with its head held high like a small guardian completing its mission. The sun rose higher in the sky as the officers guided Sammy out of the warehouse and into the open air where the gentle morning breeze touched his face. The puppy stayed close to him and did not move more than a step away, as if afraid that leaving him alone might bring trouble again. Sammy looked tired but safe. His clothes were dusty, and his ankle was swollen, yet his eyes held a grateful shine because he knew he had escaped something that could have been far worse. Amir helped him sit on a low concrete block outside the warehouse while his partner Zayn spoke through the radio informing the ambulance team about the boy's condition. The calm outside the warehouse was very different from the strange heavy silence that waited inside. The officers could feel there was more hidden in that old building than a simple accident. As they waited for the ambulance, the puppy began walking in small circles around Sammy, and then paused to look toward the warehouse entrance again. Its ears were raised and its tail stood straight as if something inside still bothered it. The little creature behaved not only with loyalty, but also with a sense of warning. Amir's instincts sharpened when he saw this. Puppies usually relaxed once their humans were safe, but this one seemed alert, as if the warehouse still held secrets that needed attention. He placed a reassuring hand on Sammy's shoulder and then stepped back toward the door. The moment he did that, the puppy followed him quickly and stood beside him ready to lead the way again. Inside the warehouse the air felt different now. The dust seemed heavier and the old metal pieces created long shadows across the floor. Amir walked slowly, observing the ground where the shelves had collapsed. Something about the scene did not look natural. The shelves were pushed in one direction rather than falling due to weak structure. There were marks on the floor like someone had moved them with force. Sammy could not have done that by accident. Amir felt a rising suspicion that someone else had been inside the warehouse before the boy arrived. Footprints scattered around the dirt told a silent story. Some prints were small like Sammy's shoes, but others were large and deep, indicating an adult who moved in a hurry. The puppy sniffed the ground near a dark corner and let out a low sound of discomfort. Amir followed it and noticed something that had not been visible earlier. Behind an old metal crate stood a narrow door slightly open. It blended with the wall so well that one could easily miss it unless looking closely. Amir pushed the door open slowly and stepped inside the small hidden room. There was almost no light inside, and he had to switch on his flashlight. The beam revealed a cramped storage area filled with large boxes covered with a thin layer of dust. Some boxes were old, yet others looked recently moved. This mix made the room feel like someone used it both for hiding and storing things that required secrecy. Amir continued to scan the room and noticed faded labels on the boxes. Some belonged to local stores and others had no labels at all. A few boxes had marks showing they were opened recently. He knelt down and lifted one lid carefully. Inside he found electronic items that seemed new and expensive. It looked like the warehouse might be part of a storage route for stolen goods. This discovery changed the situation completely. Sammy had walked into a place that was being used for a crime. The accident with the shelves might not have been purely accidental. It was possible someone pushed the shelves to scare him away or to keep him from seeing too much. Zayn entered the warehouse after finishing the radio call and saw Amir inspecting the hidden room. He understood the seriousness by the look on Amir's face. The puppy sat near the doorway watching both officers as if waiting for their next move. Amir explained everything he found, and Zayn agreed that this was much bigger than saving a trapped boy. Someone was using the warehouse for illegal activity, and the officers needed to act fast before the people responsible returned. Just then a distant siren cut through the silence and signaled that the ambulance was close. The officers stepped out of the hidden room and moved toward the warehouse entrance again. As they reached outside, they saw the ambulance stopping near the road. 2 paramedics jumped out quickly and brought a stretcher towards Sammy. The boy smiled weakly and apologized for causing trouble, but the officers assured him that he had done nothing wrong. They explained that the puppy had been the true hero, and Sammy looked down at the little creature with deep affection. The puppy wagged its tail softly when Sammy petted its head. The paramedics checked Sammy's ankle and confirmed that he had a sprain but no serious injury. They placed him gently on the stretcher and prepared to take him to the clinic for proper care. As they lifted him, the puppy whined softly and tried to climb onto the stretcher. Sammy reached out and placed a calming hand on its head. He promised that he would see the puppy again soon. The paramedics smiled at the loyalty shown by the small dog and told Amir that the boy would be fine with rest. Once the ambulance drove away, Amir focused again on the warehouse. He called for backup and informed the station about the hidden room and the suspicious boxes. The officers in the station responded quickly and said they would send a team to investigate further. Amir and Zayn waited near the warehouse door while the puppy sat between them with a silent understanding that there was more work to be done. A short while later 2 patrol cars arrived and more officers entered the warehouse to secure the area. While the investigation team began organizing the evidence, Amir sat on a crate outside and watched the puppy. He thought about how strange and brave the events of the morning had been. A tiny creature had run into a police station, asking for help without a single word yet with a clear purpose. The thought amazed him. He reached down and gently rubbed the puppy's head. The puppy closed its eyes for a moment and leaned against his leg like a child seeking comfort. Amir felt a bond forming with the brave little dog. The day had started in silence yet had turned into a strange mix of rescue mystery and courage thanks to a small puppy who refused to give up. The morning had turned into early noon by the time more officers arrived to take control of the warehouse. The once quiet and forgotten place now buzzed with careful activity as the investigation team moved through each corner searching for more signs connected to the stolen goods. Amir stood near the entrance and watched them work with steady focus. The puppy stayed close to his feet, as if it understood that everything unfolding now had started because of its brave actions. Amir felt a deep sense of respect for this small creature, who had managed to guide them into a situation far more complicated than a simple rescue. It had saved a life and uncovered a hidden crime without knowing how important its role would become. Inside the warehouse, the officers lifted boxes one by one and opened them to inspect the contents. They found more electronics tools and small valuable items that were reported missing in the last few months. Some items had serial numbers that matched earlier theft reports. This discovery confirmed that the warehouse had been used as a storage point for stolen property. The hidden room and the marks on the floor suggested that the people behind this were not amateurs. They had been using this place for some time and had a system to hide their activities. This made Amir wonder why the thieves had not been seen around the warehouse earlier. Something about the scene felt unfinished, like a puzzle missing an important piece. The puppy moved inside again and sniffed around the area where the hidden door stood open. It seemed restless, as if something inside still felt wrong. Amir followed it and stood near the entrance of the hidden room. The narrow space looked even darker now, with officers moving in and out marking boxes with numbers. Amir noticed a small metal tool lying near a crate and picked it up. It looked new and clean, unlike the dusty items around it. Someone must have dropped it recently. That made him think that the thieves had been there not long before Sammy entered the warehouse. They might have heard him and tried to scare him away without causing serious harm. The falling shelves did not look like an accident, and this new detail strengthened that suspicion. Zayn joined Amir and pointed toward faint tire tracks outside the building. They followed the marks and saw that they led to a narrow path behind the warehouse. The path ended near a fence with a broken section large enough for a vehicle to pass through. The thieves who used this place likely entered and left through this hidden route. Amir took note of the direction and informed the team so they could check nearby roads for any matching vehicle reports. The more they learned, the clearer it became that the group behind this operation was careful, skilled, and determined to stay hidden. Amir walked back toward the front of the warehouse and took a moment to breathe. He looked at the puppy, who was sitting quietly under the shade of a metal beam. The little dog tilted its head as if waiting for an update. Amir knelt beside it and gently ran his hand along its back, feeling the soft warm fur. He told the puppy in a calm voice that it had done something truly brave today. The puppy responded with a soft sound and leaned into his hand with trust. It was clear that the bond between them was growing stronger with each passing moment. Soon one of the officers came to Amir, holding a small notebook they had found inside the hidden room. The notebook was old, yet the writing inside looked recent. There were dates, locations, and initials that seemed like codes for drop points and pickup times. This was the key evidence they needed. If decoded properly, it could lead them to the people in charge of this operation. Amir took the notebook carefully and began flipping through the pages. He noticed that some entries were marked with a star, suggesting that they were important. One entry caught his attention. It mentioned the old train yard on the north side of town, a place rarely visited by anyone. The note said goods to be collected by evening. If true, the thieves might return there soon. Amir shared this discovery with Zain and the other officers. They agreed that checking the train yard was important, but they needed to proceed with caution. The group behind the thefts might be dangerous or might flee if they sensed police presence. Amir suggested they move quietly and keep a small team at first. The others supported this plan. Before leaving, Amir looked at the puppy, who seemed to sense that something serious was happening again. It stood up and followed him to the car without hesitation. Amir gently lifted the puppy and placed it in the back seat. The little creature sat calmly, as if ready to face whatever came next. The drive to the train yard took only a few minutes but felt longer because of the tension in the air. The old yard stood silent, with rusty tracks stretching across the empty field. Broken train parts lay scattered around and weeds grew tall between the rails. It looked like a place forgotten by time. Amir stepped out of the car and scanned the area with sharp eyes. Zain walked beside him, checking the ground for fresh tracks or footprints. The puppy sniffed around and began moving with slow, careful steps, as if searching for something. They reached a large abandoned train carriage at the far end of the yard. The doors were slightly open, and Amir felt the same uneasy feeling he had inside the warehouse. He signaled Zain to approach from the side while he moved toward the front. The puppy stayed close to him and looked inside through the gap. Inside the carriage they saw more boxes stacked in a corner. These boxes looked similar to the ones found in the warehouse. This confirmed that the thieves were using multiple hiding places in the town. Amir stepped inside the carriage and inspected the boxes. Some were empty, suggesting that the thieves had already moved parts of their stolen goods. The puppy walked ahead and stopped near a small bag lying under an old seat. Amir opened the bag and found a pair of gloves, a screwdriver, and a folded paper. When he unfolded the paper, he found a simple map with markings that connected the warehouse, the train yard, and 2 other locations. This map was another strong clue. It suggested that the thieves used several places to hide and store items before moving them out of town. As Amir examined the map, the puppy suddenly gave a sharp, alerting bark. Amir turned quickly and noticed movement outside the carriage. Someone was approaching from the far side of the yard. Zain also saw the shadow and prepared himself. They crouched low and waited to see who it was. The figure moved slowly and kept looking around, as if making sure no one was watching. Amir recognized the behavior of someone returning to collect hidden goods. This could be one of the thieves. The abandoned train yard felt colder as the figure moved slowly through the tall grass and shadows. Amir and Zain remained still inside the old carriage while the puppy crouched near Amir's foot with quiet alertness. The sound of footsteps grew clearer and the tension in the air tightened. The figure looked around again, as if checking whether the area was safe. His movements were cautious but practiced, which made Amir sure that this person was connected to the stolen goods. Zain shifted his position slightly, preparing himself for whatever came next. Amir placed one hand gently on the puppy's back to keep it calm while keeping his eyes on the approaching figure. The man reached the side of the train carriage and began inspecting the ground, as if searching for something he had left earlier. He did not seem aware of the officers hiding inside. When he stepped closer to the open door, Amir signaled Zain with a small hand gesture. They moved together with controlled steps and confronted the man before he could escape. Amir stood in front of him while Zayn moved behind to block any retreat. The man froze with shock as he saw the officers. His face turned pale, and he raised his hands slowly. He tried to speak, but his voice shook with fear. Amir told him to remain calm and explain why he was there. The man hesitated but finally admitted that he was part of a small group that used the warehouse and the train yard to hide stolen items. He said they moved goods at night and kept everything in secret places so no one would notice missing things until it was too late. As the man talked, Amir noticed that he kept glancing toward a distant corner of the yard as if someone else might be hiding there. Amir asked him directly if he was alone. The man lowered his head and said that the others had planned to meet him later but had not arrived yet. Amir knew he had to act quickly before the rest of the group appeared. He informed the station about the arrest and requested more officers to surround the area in case anyone else attempted to return. While they waited for support, Amir kept questioning the man about the map found inside the carriage. The man explained that the map showed all hiding points they used to move stolen items from one place to another. They changed locations often so that no single place carried too much risk. The puppy stayed close to Amir during the questioning. Its ears remained raised, and its eyes kept scanning the area as if expecting trouble. The little dog sensed tension that humans sometimes missed, and Amir had learned to trust its instincts. The presence of the puppy gave him a strange feeling of reassurance. It had guided them this far, and had not made a single mistake. Soon more officers arrived and secured the train yard. They searched the entire area and confirmed that no other member of the group was present. The man they had caught was escorted to one of the patrol cars. Before leaving, he looked at the puppy with a confused expression, as if still unable to believe that a small dog had played such a big role in uncovering their operation. With the suspect taken away, the yard fell quiet again. Amir looked at the map and pointed toward the 2 remaining marked locations. He knew the team would have to search those places too. The puppy gave a small bark and wagged its tail at the same moment as if encouraging him to continue. Amir smiled and lifted the puppy before walking back to the car. Zayn joined him and they drove to the next marked point, which was an old shed near a dried riverbed. The shed looked abandoned from the outside, but when they opened the door they found more hidden items stored inside. Boxes filled with small tools, jewelry pieces, and other valuable objects lined the walls. This confirmed that the group had been operating for months without anyone noticing. The officers photographed everything and recorded each item carefully. As they finished their work, the puppy walked around the shed sniffing each corner and whining slightly as if sensing the history left behind. Amir watched it with interest and wondered how such a small creature could show so much awareness. When the team completed their search, they moved on to the final location marked on the map. This place was an old storage barn outside the town limits. The barn doors creaked loudly when they pushed them open. Inside they found fewer items but enough to show that the barn had been used recently. The puppy barked once and ran toward the back of the barn where a small wooden box sat under a blanket. Inside the box they found a notebook with more names and numbers. This book held information about who purchased the stolen goods and where the transactions took place. This discovery would help the police track the remaining members of the group. As the sun began to set, the officers gathered outside the barn to review everything they had found. Amir stood with the puppy in his arms and looked at the horizon glowing with orange and gold. He felt tired yet proud. The day had begun with confusion, but now it carried a sense of victory. A brave puppy had run into the police station seeking help for a trapped boy, and in doing so had led them to uncover a larger crime. The officers praised Amir for his leadership and quick thinking, but he always pointed toward the puppy and said that the real hero had 4 legs and a loyal heart. That evening they returned to the station where the puppy received more attention from every officer present. They brought it food, water, and a warm blanket. Sammy's mother called to thank them for saving her son. She said Sammy kept asking about the puppy and wanted to see it once he recovered. Amir assured her that the puppy would visit soon. As the night settled, Amir sat on a bench outside the station with the puppy curled beside him. The cool air brushed against them, but the warmth of the moment kept everything peaceful. Amir gently rubbed the puppy's head and thought about how destiny sometimes arrived in strange forms. A small frightened creature had walked into the station yet carried courage greater than many adults. It had saved a child and helped solve a mystery without understanding its own bravery. Amir decided he would not let the puppy wander alone again. He made a silent promise that he would take care of it and give it a home full of safety and kindness. The puppy rested its head on his knee, as if accepting the promise. And so the day ended with a feeling of hope. The puppy who once ran in seeking help had now found a family, and the town had found a hero in the most unexpected form.